I thought marrying into money would give me everything. Instead, my white wife banned my poor parents from her elite celebration, called them embarrassing, told me to keep them away from her perfect world. What she didn't know? They showed up anyway, in a helicopter. The look on her face when my simple parents stepped out and her own security chief called my father Sir, priceless. But that humiliation was just the beginning, because when she tried to lock me out of my own life, erase my family, and force me to choose between her world and my dignity, I chose something she never saw coming. And now, some mornings, she still drives past my shop, staring at what she threw away, remembering the parents she thought were a joke. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this is a story about knowing your worth, no matter where you come from. The fluorescent lights in my shop buzzed the same way they did every morning. I stood under the lift, wiping grease off my hands with a red rag that had been white once, back when I still believed I could keep everything clean. The radio played low in the corner, some old Motown song my dad used to hum while he worked on engines in our garage when I was a kid. That was a long time ago. Now I worked alone most mornings, just me and the cars and the smell of oil and gasoline. It was honest work, good work, the kind that left your hands dirty, but your conscience clear. My phone buzzed on the workbench. I already knew who it was before I looked. Charlotte, legacy celebration tonight, 7 p.m. Leave work by 5. Look presentable. No, good morning. No, how are you? Just instructions. I stared at the text for a long moment. Then, I slid the phone back into my pocket and returned to the engine in front of me. A Ford F-150 with a busted alternator. Simple fix. Straightforward. Nothing like the mess waiting for me at home. Home. I still called it that, even though it never felt like mine. The Van Alder estate sat on 12 acres outside the city. Gates, security, staff who called me sir, but looked at me like I was a stain on the marble floors. I'd married Charlotte 2 years ago in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. Her mother, Vivian, cried through the whole thing, not happy tears. I was allowed in their world, but only if I stayed quiet. Only if I smiled at the right times and laughed at jokes I didn't find funny and pretended I didn't notice when people spoke about me like I wasn't in the room. Marcus, you good? I looked up. Tasha stood in the doorway of the shop, her coveralls tied at her waist, a box of donuts in her hand. She was my coworker, my friend, and one of the few people who didn't treat me different after I got married. Yeah, I said, just thinking. She set the donuts down and studied me. Tasha had this way of seeing through you, like she could read all the things you didn't say. Big event tonight? She asked. How'd you know? You got that look, the one you get when you're about to walk into a room full of people who think you don't belong there. I almost smiled. That obvious? To me it is. She grabbed a donut and leaned against the bench. You know you don't have to go, right? You're a grown man, Marcus. You can say no. I shook my head. It's her family's thing. Legacy donors. Big deal for her company. And what about you? You matter in this equation? I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Tasha sighed. One of these days, you're gonna have to stop shrinking yourself to fit into her world. Before I could respond, the bell above the door chimed. A customer walked in, older white man, maybe 60, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He had that easy confidence of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. Morning, I said, wiping my hands again. What can I do for you? Got a Lexus outside. Engine lights on. I'll take a look. He nodded, then paused. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he was trying to place me. You're Marcus Reed, right? I tensed. Yeah, thought so. You related to Harold Reed? My chest tightened. He's my father. The man smiled. I used to see him around the airfield years back. Sharp guy. Real sharp. Knew his way around planes like nobody's business. I didn't know what to say. My dad never talked about that part of his life. Not to me, anyway. He's still around? The man asked. Yeah, retired now. Good for him. You tell him Jim Carlson says hello. I will. The man left, and I stood there feeling like the ground had shifted under my feet. Tasha was watching me again. What was that about? She asked. Nothing, I said quickly. Just someone who knew my dad. But it wasn't nothing. It never was. By the time I pulled up to the estate that evening, the sun was starting to dip low. The gates opened automatically when they recognized my car. I drove up the long gravel driveway and parked near the garage, away from the main entrance where the fancy cars would be arriving soon. I sat in the truck for a moment, staring at the house. It looked like something out of a magazine. Perfect, polished, cold. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Clean shirt, smooth face, calm smile. I practiced it twice before I got out of the truck. Inside, the house was chaos. Staff rushed from room to room carrying flower arrangements taller than I was. Someone barked orders about table settings. Security guards in black suits spoke into earpieces near the doors. Charlotte stood in the center of it all, dressed in a cream-colored gown that probably cost more than my truck. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a queen. She didn't look at me when I walked in. You're late, she said, her voice sharp. I left work at 5 like you asked. Traffic? Yeah. She turned to me then, her blue eyes cold. Go upstairs. Change. Guests arrive in 45 minutes. Charlotte? Not now, Marcus. I swallowed the words I wanted to say. Instead, I nodded and headed for the stairs. Wait. I stopped. Charlotte crossed the room toward me, heels clicking on the marble. She studied my face like she was inspecting a piece of furniture. Are you going to be pleasant tonight? She asked quietly. Of course. Good, because this is important. I know. She turned away without another word. I climbed the stairs and went to the guest room. Not our bedroom, the guest room. That's where I kept my things now. Charlotte said it was easier that way. Less clutter. I stood in front of the mirror, tying my tie with shaking hands. My phone buzzed. Mom, thinking of you tonight, baby. Love you. My throat tightened. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Me. Love you too, Ma. I almost invited her. Almost asked if she and Dad wanted to come. Just for an hour. Just to be there. But I didn't. Because I already knew what Charlotte would say. The first guests started arriving just after 7. I stood beside Charlotte in the grand hall, smiling and shaking hands with people whose names I'd forget by tomorrow. They were donors, board members, old family friends. Charlotte introduced me the same way every time. This is my husband, Marcus. And they'd smile politely and say something like, "Oh, how nice," before turning back to Charlotte and talking about things I didn't understand. Investments, foundations, legacy planning. I was decoration. Vivian arrived fashionably late, as always. Charlotte's mother swept into the room like she owned it, which, technically, she did. She wore diamonds and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She kissed Charlotte on both cheeks. Then she looked at me. Marcus, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Still working with your hands, I see. I forced a smile. Yes, ma'am. How quaint? Charlotte didn't correct her. She never did. A waiter passed by with champagne. Vivian took a glass and turned her attention back to Charlotte. Darling, did Grant confirm he's coming? Charlotte's face flickered, just for a second. Yes, he'll be here. Wonderful. You two always did make such a lovely pair. I clenched my jaw. Grant Whitmore, Charlotte's ex-boyfriend, old money, Ivy League, perfect teeth. He'd been the plan before I came along. Vivian never let me forget it. Charlotte squeezed my arm. Not comfort, control. Marcus, she said sweetly, why don't you go check on the catering? I'm fine here. Her grip tightened. Please. I pulled away gently and walked toward the kitchen. Behind me, I heard Vivian laugh. It sounded like breaking glass. In the kitchen, I stood near the back door and took a deep breath. My phone buzzed again. Mom, you okay? She always knew. Even when I didn't say anything, she knew. I started typing a response, but before I could finish, my phone rang. It was her. I stepped outside into the cool evening air and answered. Hey, Ma. Marcus? Her voice was warm, steady. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Don't lie to me, baby. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. It's just, tonight's a big event for Charlotte's family, a lot of important people. And? And it's not really the kind of thing, I mean, it's formal and, Marcus, her voice was gentle but firm. Are you trying to tell me we're not invited? Silence. I'm sorry, Ma. Don't apologize, baby. Just tell me the truth. Did Charlotte say we couldn't come? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Denise Reed sighed on the other end of the line. I see. It's not personal, I said quickly. It's just the guest list is tight and Marcus, stop. I stopped. Never call us poor like it's a disease, she said quietly. You hear me? Never. My chest ached. I'm sorry. I know you are. Her voice softened. But you need to figure out who you are, baby. Because hiding your family to keep peace, that's not peace. That's shame. I heard movement on her end. Then my dad's voice, low and calm. Let me talk to him. Harold Reed didn't say much. He never did. But when he spoke, you listened. Marcus. Yeah, Dad. What time is the event? I frowned. 7. Why? Just asking. And then he hung up. I stood there in the dark, staring at my phone, trying to figure out what just happened. Inside, the party was in full swing. Piano music drifted through the open windows, laughter, champagne glasses clinking. I walked back inside and found Charlotte near the entrance, greeting more guests. She looked perfect, untouchable. Grant Whitmore stood beside her. He was tall, polished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. His smile was white and easy. He shook Charlotte's hand and held it just a little too long. Charlotte, he said, you look stunning. Grant? She smiled, actually smiled. I'm so glad. You could make it. He turned to me. His smile didn't change, but his eyes did. Marcus, right? Yeah. Charlotte's told me all about you. Mechanic, is it? That's right. Fascinating. He said it the way you'd say unfortunate. Charlotte touched Grant's arm. Let me introduce you to the board members. She walked away with him without looking back. I stood there, alone in a room full of people, and felt like I was disappearing. An older woman approached me. She had kind eyes and silver hair pulled into a bun. You must be Marcus, she said warmly. Yes, ma'am. I'm Mrs. Hensley. I sit on the foundation board with Charlotte's mother. Nice to meet you. She studied me for a moment. Where are your parents tonight, dear? The question hit me like a punch. Before I could answer, Charlotte appeared at my side. Mrs. Hensley, she said brightly, have you met the new donor from the Harrington estate? Mrs. Hensley's smile faded slightly. Not yet. Let me introduce you. Charlotte led her away, leaving me standing alone again. That's when I heard it. A low thump, distant, growing louder. People started looking up, turning toward the windows. The sound was unmistakable. Helicopter blades. The room went quiet. Everyone moved toward the windows, phones already out, whispers spreading like wildfire. The helicopter descended slowly, its lights cutting through the dusk, and landed on the lawn just beyond the garden. Security started moving. Vivian's face went white. The helicopter door opened, and my mother stepped out. Denise Reed stepped onto the grass like she owned it. She wasn't wearing diamonds. She wasn't dripping in designer labels. She wore a simple navy dress and low heels, her hair pulled back in the same elegant bun she'd worn to church every Sunday for as long as I could remember. But the way she carried herself, head high, shoulders back, calm as still water, made every person in that room stop breathing. My father followed behind her. Harold Reed moved with the same quiet authority he always had. Gray suit, steady eyes, no flash, no performance, just presence. Security moved toward them immediately. Two guards in black suits, hands hovering near their radios. I saw Mr. Coulson, the head of security, step forward with his jaw set tight. But then something changed. Coulson stopped walking. His face shifted from stern to something else. Something like recognition, maybe even respect. Sir, Coulson said, his voice different now, softer. I didn't know you were coming. My father nodded once. Evening, Coulson. The guards stepped back. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mother's eyes found mine across the lawn, through the window, across all the champagne and fake smiles and judgment. She walked straight toward the house. People moved out of her way. Behind me, I heard Vivian's voice crack like ice. What is this? What is happening? Charlotte stood frozen, her face pale, her mouth open slightly like she'd forgotten how to close it. Grant leaned close to her and whispered something. Charlotte's eyes flashed with anger. The doors opened. Denise and Harold walked into the grand hall like they'd been invited all along. Mrs. Hensley's face lit up. She moved toward my father with her hand extended, her smile genuine and warm. Harold Reed, she said, wonder in her voice. I haven't seen you in years. My father shook her hand. Mrs. Hensley, good to see you. I had no idea you were Marcus's father. She looked at me, then back at him. Why didn't anyone tell me? No one answered. My mother walked straight to me. She didn't look at Charlotte, didn't acknowledge the stares or the whispers or the phones recording every second. She just walked to me, and when she reached me, she lifted her hand and touched my cheek, gentle, the way she used to when I was small and scared. Don't ever be ashamed of us again, she said quietly. My throat closed, my eyes burned. I couldn't speak, couldn't explain, couldn't defend myself, because she was right. The room stayed silent for maybe 10 seconds. Then the whispers started, quiet at first, then louder. Charlotte finally moved. She crossed the room toward my parents, her face arranged into a tight smile that didn't reach anywhere near her eyes. What a surprise, she said, her voice sharp and controlled. This is quite dramatic. My mother didn't flinch. We came because our son is here. That's what families do. Of course. Charlotte's smile stretched wider. Faker. But a helicopter. Really? It was efficient, my father said simply. Vivian appeared at Charlotte's shoulder, her face twisted with barely contained fury. She looked at my parents like they were something she'd stepped in. This is a private event, Vivian said coldly, for invited guests. Denise met her eyes. We don't need your approval. We need your respect. The words landed like stones in water, ripples, spread across the room. Vivian's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Grant stepped forward, his polished smile still in place, but his eyes were calculating. He leaned close to Charlotte and whispered something I couldn't hear. Charlotte's jaw tightened. Mrs. Hensley broke the tension. She took my father's arm gently. Harold, you must tell me what you've been doing all these years. I heard you retired from the airfield. That's right, my father said. Consulting now. Keeping busy. And you never mentioned you had a son working as a mechanic. Marcus is good at what he does. Mrs. Hensley looked at me with new eyes, kinder eyes. I'm sure he is. Other guests began to drift closer. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to make Charlotte's control start slipping. I watched her face change, watched the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was losing the room. Vivian grabbed Charlotte's arm and pulled her toward the side corridor near the parlor. Grant followed without being asked. I saw them disappear together, heads close, faces hard. They were planning something. My mother stood beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm. My father had moved into quiet conversation with Mrs. Hensley and another older gentleman who seemed to know him from somewhere. Ma, I whispered, you didn't have to do this. She looked at me, really looked at me. Yes, we did. Charlotte's going to be furious. Let her. This is her world, her family. I. Marcus, her voice was firm. Stop protecting her feelings and start protecting your own. I didn't know what to say to that. A waiter passed by with champagne. My mother took a glass, sipped it once, and set it down on a nearby table. This whole place feels like a museum, she said quietly. Pretty to look at, but no life in it. She was right. The whole estate felt like that. Beautiful and empty. Harold finished his conversation and walked over to us. He studied my face for a long moment. You all right, son? I don't know, I admitted. He nodded. That's honest. We stood there together, the three of us, while the party continued around us. People stared, some whispered, a few smiled politely and moved on. But we stood together, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like I was standing alone. Charlotte didn't return for 20 minutes. When she finally came back into the hall, her face was composed, calm, but there was something brittle underneath, something cracking. She walked straight to me, ignoring my parents completely. Marcus, she said quietly, can we talk? Privately? I looked at my mother. She gave me a small nod. I followed Charlotte through the corridor and into the library. She closed the door behind us and turned to face me. For a moment, she just stared. Then she exploded. What were you thinking? Her voice was low but vicious. You invited them? Here? Tonight? I didn't invite them, I said carefully. They came on their own. In a helicopter, Marcus. A helicopter. Do you know how that looks? How does it look? Like a stunt, like you're trying to embarrass me in front of my family and every important person in this city. I took a breath, stayed calm. They're my parents, Charlotte. They have every right to be here. No. She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. They don't. This is my family's event, my world, and you don't get to bring your. She stopped herself, but I heard what she didn't say. My what? I asked quietly. She looked away. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Silence. Charlotte turned her back to me and pressed her fingers to her temples. This is a disaster. Vivian is furious. Grant thinks you're trying to sabotage me. And now everyone's going to be talking about this instead of the foundation. Maybe they should talk about it. She spun around. What? Maybe people should see that I have a family, that I come from somewhere, that I'm not just. I stopped. Not just what? Not just your accessory. Her face went cold. Is that what you think you are? Isn't it? She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a bitter sound. You married me, Marcus. You chose this life. You wanted this. I wanted you, I said quietly. There's a difference. Something flickered across her face, something almost like pain, but it was gone too fast to be sure. Get rid of them, she said flatly. What? Your parents. Tell them to leave. Now, before they cause more damage. No. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I said no. Charlotte's face flushed red. You don't get to tell me no. Not tonight. Not here. I'm not asking them to leave. Then I will. She moved toward the door. I stepped in front of her. Charlotte, don't. She looked up at me, and for a second I saw the woman I fell in love with. The woman who laughed at my bad jokes and kissed me in the rain and told me she didn't care where I came from. But that woman was gone. Move, she said coldly. I moved. She walked out of the library and I followed, my heart pounding, knowing this was about to get worse. Charlotte crossed the hall with purpose. She walked straight to my mother, her smile bright and fake as plastic. Mrs. Reed, she said loudly enough for people to hear, thank you so much for stopping by. It was such a lovely surprise. My mother's expression didn't change. We're not leaving yet. Charlotte's smile tightened. I really must insist. We have a very tight schedule tonight and… No. The word was quiet, but absolute. Charlotte blinked. I'm sorry? I said no. Denise's voice was calm, steady. We came to see our son, and we'll leave when we're ready. People were watching now, phones out, whispers spreading faster. Vivian appeared like a storm cloud, Grant trailing behind her. This is completely inappropriate, Vivian said sharply. Security, please escort these people. These people, Harold said quietly, have names. Vivian's mouth snapped shut. Mr. Coulson stood nearby, looking uncomfortable. He didn't move. Charlotte's face was red now, her control slipping. She looked at me with something close to hatred. Marcus, she said through gritted teeth, handle this. No. Her eyes went wide. What did you say? I said no. My voice was steady, calm. You don't talk to my mother like that. Charlotte stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. You are embarrassing me. In front of everyone. Do you understand that? I understand, I said quietly. But I'm not asking them to leave. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Then she turned to the crowd, her face transforming into a mask of wounded grace. I apologize for the disruption, she said loudly, her voice trembling just enough to sound hurt. Family can be complicated. A few people murmured sympathetically. My mother looked at me. Her eyes said everything. This is who she is. This is what you married. I felt something crack inside my chest. Charlotte turned and walked away, Vivian and Grant following close behind. They disappeared into another corridor, their voices low and angry. The party continued. Music, champagne, laughter. But I stood there with my parents, feeling like the floor had opened beneath me. We should go, my father said quietly. No, I said. Stay, please. My mother touched my hand. We've made our point, baby. What point? That we exist, she said simply. That we're not ashamed, and that you don't have to be either. She kissed my cheek, and then they walked toward the door together, heads high, unbowed. I watched them leave, watched the helicopter lift off into the night sky, and I stood there alone in a room full of people who would never see me as anything more than Charlotte's mistake. The party ended just after midnight. Staff cleaned up in silence. Security cleared the grounds. Guests, left in their expensive cars, already texting about the drama they'd witnessed. I found Charlotte in the upstairs sitting room, staring out the window with a glass of wine in her hand. She didn't turn when I walked in. They're gone, I said quietly. Good. I sat down across from her. We need to talk. Not tonight. Charlotte, I said not tonight, Marcus. Her voice was sharp, final. I stood up, walked to the door, stopped. Why did you marry me? I asked. She turned then, looked at me with tired eyes. Because I thought you were different, she said quietly. I thought you'd fit. Fit into what? My life. I nodded slowly. Not be part of it. Just fit into it. She didn't answer. I left her there and went to the guest room. My room. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. My phone buzzed. Mom, we love you. Always. I typed back, "Me. I love you too." And then I stared at the ceiling some more, trying to figure out when everything had started to fall apart. Or maybe it had been broken from the beginning. Maybe I'd just been too afraid to see it. The next 2 weeks felt like walking on broken glass. Charlotte barely spoke to me. When she did, it was instructions, reminders, corrections. Don't forget the investors' dinner Thursday. Your shirt needs ironing. Be pleasant. Always be pleasant. I went to work every morning and came back to the estate every evening. The guest room became my entire world. My clothes, my phone charger, a single photo of my parents I kept on the nightstand. Charlotte moved it to a drawer. I found it there one morning while looking for socks, just shoved in between old magazines and receipts, face down, like it didn't matter, like they didn't matter. I pulled it out and set it back on the nightstand. The next day, it was gone again. Tasha noticed the change immediately. "You look like hell," she said one afternoon at the shop. We were both under a Chevy Silverado, replacing the transmission. The work was hard and honest, and it was the only time I felt like myself anymore. "I'm fine." "Liar." I didn't argue. She slid out from under the truck and looked at me. "What happened after the helicopter thing? I saw the videos online." Of course there were videos. There were always videos. "Charlotte's mad," I said simply. "Mad about what? That your parents showed up? That they exist?" "Mad that I didn't stop them." Tasha shook her head. "Marcus, you can't keep living like this. You're disappearing." "I'm right here." "No, you're not." She stood up, wiping her hands on her coveralls. "You're a ghost in your own life. And one of these days, you're gonna wake up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't, because she was right. Thursday came too fast. The investors' dinner was at the estate. 20 people, important people. Charlotte had it. Reminded me 4 times to be appropriate. I wore the suit she'd picked out, the tie she'd chosen. I smiled when I was supposed to smile and stayed quiet when I was supposed to stay quiet. Grant was there. He sat next to Charlotte at the long dining table, laughing at her jokes, touching her arm when he made a point. She didn't pull away. Vivian sat across from them, watching me with cold satisfaction. I was seated at the far end of the table, away from Charlotte, away from the real conversations. Next to me was an older man who spent the entire meal talking about his yacht. I nodded and made polite sounds while my wife laughed at another man's jokes. After dinner, everyone moved to the parlor for drinks. I stood near the window, holding a glass of whiskey I hadn't touched, watching Charlotte work the room. She was good at it, brilliant even. She knew exactly what to say, how to smile, when to laugh. She was everything these people wanted her to be, and I was everything they didn't want me to be. Grant approached me with that same polished smile. "Marcus," he said smoothly, "how's the car business?" "Good. Must be fulfilling, working with your hands." "It is." He sipped his drink. "Charlotte tells me you've been adjusting to this lifestyle." I looked at him directly. "What's that supposed to mean?" His smile didn't waver. "Just that it's a big change. From where you came from to all this. I'm doing fine." "Of course you are." He glanced toward Charlotte. "She's remarkable, isn't she? Always has been. We all thought she'd end up with someone from her world, someone who understood the pressures, the expectations." I set my glass down carefully. "She chose me." "She did." His eyes were cold. "Interesting choice." He walked away before I could respond. I stood there, hands shaking, trying to remember why I was fighting so hard to stay in a place that didn't want me. Later that night, after all the guests had left, I found Charlotte in her office. She was typing on her laptop, still dressed in her evening gown, still perfect. I knocked on the doorframe. She didn't look up. "What is it?" "We need to talk." "I'm busy." "Charlotte, please." She sighed and closed the laptop. Fine, talk. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. What's happening with us? Nothing's happening. That's the problem. I moved closer. You won't talk to me. You moved my family photos. You seat me at the opposite end of the table from you. You. You embarrassed me, she said flatly. In front of everyone who matters. Your parents showed up in a helicopter like some kind of circus act and you defended them. They're my parents. And I'm your wife. Her voice rose. Doesn't that matter? Don't I matter? Of course you do. Then why do you keep choosing them over me? I stared at her. I'm not choosing anyone over anyone. I'm just asking you to respect the people who raised me. She laughed bitterly. Respect. You want me to respect people who humiliated me in my own home. They didn't humiliate you. They just showed up. In a helicopter, Marcus. Do you not understand how that looks? Do you not care? I care about you, I said quietly. But I also care about them. Why can't I have both? She stood up, her eyes blazing. Because you can't, Marcus. You can't have both. You want to be part of my world? Then act like it. Stop dragging your old life into everything. The words hit me like a slap. My old life, I repeated slowly. You mean my family. I mean the parts of you that don't fit here. And what parts are those? She didn't answer. I nodded slowly. Right. I turned to leave. Where are you going? She demanded. To bed. We're not done talking. Yeah, I said quietly. We are. I walked out, and she didn't follow. That weekend, Charlotte announced a peace dinner. She told me over breakfast, which was the first time she'd spoken to me in 2 days. I want to make things right, she said, sipping her coffee. With your parents, I'm inviting them here, Saturday night, just the four of us. I looked up, surprised. You're serious? Yes. She set her cup down. I don't want this tension anymore. I want to try. Something in my chest loosened, just a little. Okay, I said. I'll call them. She smiled. It almost looked real. I called my mother that afternoon. A peace dinner? She repeated, skeptical. Yeah. Saturday night, just us. She wants to try, Ma. Denise was quiet for a long moment. You believe that? I want to. Another pause. All right, we'll come. For you, not for her. I know. But Marcus? Yeah? Don't get your hopes up too high, baby. People don't change overnight. I know, I said again. But I didn't know. Not really. I wanted to believe Charlotte could change, that she could see my parents the way I saw them, that love could fix this. I wanted to believe so badly. Saturday came. I spent the afternoon helping prepare. Charlotte had ordered simple food, nothing too fancy. Roasted chicken, vegetables, mashed potatoes, the kind of meal my mother used to make on Sundays. It felt like an effort, a real one. Charlotte practiced smiling in the mirror. I watched her from the doorway, adjusting her expression, softening her eyes. You don't have to perform, I said quietly. She turned. I'm not performing. I'm preparing. It's just my parents. I know. She smoothed her dress. I want them to see I'm trying. I wanted to believe her. My parents arrived just after 6. No helicopter this time. Just Harold's old sedan pulling up the driveway. Charlotte met them at the door with a smile. Mr. and Mrs. Reed, thank you for coming. My mother nodded politely. My father shook Charlotte's hand. We moved to the dining room. The table was shorter this time, intimate, 4-place settings. Charlotte had lit candles. For a while, it was awkward, polite, careful. Then my mother told a story. When Marcus was 7, she said, her voice warm, our neighbor's bike broke. Chain came off, gears all messed up. Marcus spent 3 hours in our garage fixing it. Wouldn't take any money, just wanted to help. Harold smiled. Kid always had a good heart. Charlotte looked at me, something soft in her eyes. I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know, my mother said gently, not cruel, just honest. Charlotte looked down at her plate. The conversation continued. My father complimented the house without envy. My mother asked Charlotte about her work, real questions, not polite ones. And Charlotte answered. For the first time, she talked about her company without the armor, talked about the pressure, the expectations, the weight of carrying her family's name. I understand pressure, my mother said quietly. Different kind, but I understand. Charlotte nodded. Her eyes looked wet. After dinner, we moved to the sitting room. Charlotte brought out coffee. We talked about small things, easy things, and for one moment, just one, I thought maybe this could work. Charlotte walked me to the hallway while my parents gathered their things. Thank you, she said quietly, for tonight. You did good, I said. She looked up at me, really looked at me. I want to fix this, Marcus. I do. I know. She leaned up and kissed me, soft, gentle, the first real kiss in weeks. I held her close and let myself hope. After my parents left, Charlotte suggested a public brunch. Tomorrow, she said, at the club, just to show unity. Let people see we're solid. I hesitated. You sure? Yes. She touched my face. I want people to see your family, see us together. No more hiding. I nodded. Okay. That night, I fell asleep with her beside me for the first time in weeks. I didn't see her stay awake, didn't see the phone screen glow in the dark, didn't see the texts she sent. I just slept, hoping tomorrow would be different, hoping I was wrong to doubt her. Sunday morning came bright and clear. I dressed carefully. Clean shirt, nice pants, calm posture. My parents arrived separately, pulling up to the country club in Harold's sedan. They looked dignified, proud. Inside, the brunch was already busy. White tablecloths, mimosas, people Charlotte knew. She greeted my parents warmly, hugged my mother, shook my father's hand. We sat at a table near the window. Charlotte ordered for everyone, smiling, making conversation. It felt good. It felt right. Then Vivian arrived. Charlotte's mother swept to our table with two friends, all three of them dressed like they were attending a fashion show. Darling, Vivian said, kissing Charlotte's cheek. What a lovely surprise. She looked at my parents. And the Reeds, how quaint. My mother's smile tightened. Charlotte laughed, actually laughed. Mother, please, we're having a nice morning. Of course, Vivian sat down without being invited. I just wanted to say how inspiring this is. Charlotte's always been so charitable. The word hung in the air like poison. Charitable, my father repeated quietly. Well, yes, Vivian smiled. Taking in Marcus, trying to help his family fit in, it's very generous. Charlotte didn't correct her. My mother's hand tightened around her fork. Charlotte leaned forward, her voice light, playful. You know, I was just telling Marcus, his parents are such a lesson in gratitude. Coming from so little and still managing to find joy, it's really inspiring. People at nearby tables turned to listen. My mother's face went very still. Coming from so little, Denise repeated slowly. Oh, you know what I mean. Charlotte waved her hand. Humble beginnings, simple lives. It's beautiful, really. Laughter rippled through the nearby tables. Vivian laughed loudest. I felt the ground drop out from under me. Charlotte wasn't trying to make peace. She was performing. She had brought my parents here to humiliate them, to show her world she was still in control, that she could manage me, manage them, that we were her charity project. My father's jaw set hard as stone. My mother's eyes went cold, and I felt something inside me finally break. I stood up. We're leaving, I said quietly. Charlotte looked up, surprised. Marcus, now, I reached for my mother's hand. Come on, Ma. Denise stood with dignity that made everyone else at that table look small. Harold followed without a word. Charlotte's face flushed red. Marcus, sit down. You're being dramatic. No, I said, my voice steady, calm. I'm being clear. I walked toward the exit with my parents. People stared. Phones came out. Behind us, I heard Vivian's voice, sharp with satisfaction. See, some people just can't be polished. Charlotte followed us outside into the bright sunlight. Marcus, wait. I turned. What? She looked furious, embarrassed. You just ruined everything in the front of everyone. I ruined it? Yes. You made a scene. You embarrassed me. My mother stepped forward. We're leaving now, Marcus. You coming? Charlotte pointed at Denise. You stay out of this. This is between me and my husband. Don't talk to my mother like that, I said quietly. I'll talk however I want. This is my life, my reputation, and you. She stopped herself, but I saw it in her eyes. I'm what? I asked. Go ahead. Say it. Charlotte's hand moved to her phone. She tapped something quickly. Two security guards appeared from inside the club. Mrs. Van Alder, one of them said. Is there a problem? She looked at me, then at my parents. Her voice changed, softened. Tears appeared in her eyes like magic. These people are bothering me, she said quietly. Can you please handle it? My mother inhaled sharply. My father's hand found hers. I stared at Charlotte like I'd never seen her before. Maybe I hadn't. Come on, I said to my parents. Let's go. I walked them to their car. Denise was shaking, not with fear, with anger. Marcus, she said quietly as Harold opened her door. Today you choose who you are. I nodded, couldn't speak. They drove away. I stood in the parking lot watching them go, feeling like my whole world had just turned to ash. I drove back to the estate in silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My jaw ached from clenching it. But I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't break down. I just drove. When I pulled up to the gates, I punched in the code like I'd done 100 times before. Nothing happened. I tried again. Red light, access denied. I stared at the keypad for a long moment. Then, I pulled out my phone and called Charlotte. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. I got out of the truck and walked to the gate. Through the iron bars, I could see the house. Beautiful, perfect, cold. A security guard approached from the other side. Not Colson, someone younger. Someone who didn't know me. Can I help you? He asked. I live here, I said. My key code isn't working. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, sir. I have instructions that you're not authorized to enter the property at this time. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not authorized, I repeated slowly. That's correct. This is my home. Sir, I'm just following orders. I looked past him toward the house. Through one of the front windows, I could see movement. Boxes, my clothes, my tools, stacked near the door like garbage waiting for collection. Through another window, I saw Charlotte. She stood with her arms crossed, watching me, not moving, not coming outside, just watching. Can I at least get my things? I asked quietly. The guard shifted. I'll have to check. He walked away, speaking into his radio. I stood there at the gates of the house I'd lived in for 2 years, locked out like a stranger. The guard came back. Mrs. Van, Alder says you can collect your belongings tomorrow, between 2 and 4 p.m. You'll have 1 hour. 1 hour. Yes, sir. And tonight? I'm sorry, sir. You'll need to find somewhere else to stay. I nodded slowly, turned away, got back in my truck. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the estate through the windshield. Then, I pulled out my phone and called Tasha. She answered on the second ring. Marcus? She locked me out, I said quietly. Silence. Then, where are you? At the gates. Stay there, I'm coming. No, I'll. Stay there, Marcus. She hung up. 20 minutes later, Tasha's old Honda pulled up behind my truck. She got out, walked to my window, and looked at me for a long moment. Come on, she said gently. Where? My place. I got a couch. It's not much, but. Thank you, I said. She nodded. Follow me. Tasha's apartment was small. One bedroom, cramped kitchen, but it was warm. It felt like a home. She made coffee while I sat on her couch, still in my nice shirt and pants from the brunch, still looking like I belonged somewhere I didn't belong anymore. You want to talk about it? She asked, handing me a mug. Not really. Fair enough. We sat in silence. The coffee was strong and bitter and perfect. After a while, I spoke. I kept thinking I could make it work, I said quietly. If I just tried hard enough, if I just stayed quiet enough, if I just made myself small enough to fit into her world. And I disappeared. I looked at her. You were right. I became a ghost. Tasha didn't say, I told you so. She just listened. She brought my parents to that brunch to humiliate them, I continued, to show her world she was still in control, that we were her charity project, and I let her do it. You didn't let her do anything. You got them out of there. After she'd already done the damage. Marcus, Tasha set down her coffee. You can't control what she does. You can only control what you do. I nodded. My hands shook slightly. I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. I looked at her. You already know, she said gently. You're just scared to do it. She was right. I was terrified. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on Tasha's couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Charlotte had locked me out, changed the codes, packed my things like I was a problem to be removed, and she'd done it all without a word, without a conversation, without even pretending I deserved an explanation. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Charlotte, you made your choice. I'm making mine. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Me. What choice did I make? Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Charlotte, you chose them over me, your trashy family over your wife. My jaw tightened. Me. They're not trashy. They're my parents. Charlotte. Same thing. I set the phone down before I said something I'd regret. But the truth was, I didn't regret anything anymore. I regretted staying quiet for so long. I regretted hiding my parents. I regretted shrinking myself to fit into a world that never wanted me in the first place. But I didn't regret defending them. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke early. Tasha was already up making breakfast. You want eggs? She asked. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway, you need your strength. I ate the eggs. They were good, simple, real. After breakfast, I sat at her tiny kitchen table and made a list. What I need, my tools, my clothes, my documents, my father's watch, the family photo album. What I won't do. Beg, argue, perform, apologize for defending my family. Tasha read over my shoulder. Good list, she said. Yeah. You gonna be okay going back there? I have to be. She squeezed my shoulder. You're stronger than you think. I hoped she was right. At noon, I drove to my parents' house. It was a small place, 3 bedrooms, neat lawn, the house I grew up in. I'd been ashamed of it for 2 years. Now it looked like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Marcus, she said softly. Hey, Ma. She pulled me inside and wrapped her arms around me. I broke then, right there in her arms, just for a moment. When I pulled back, my father was standing in the doorway. He didn't say anything, just looked at me with those steady, knowing eyes. I'm sorry, I said, for everything, for hiding you, for being ashamed, for using the word poor like it was a disease. I'm so sorry. Denise cupped my face in her hands. You don't have to apologize, baby. You just have to remember who you are. I don't know who I am anymore. Yes, you do, she smiled. You're Harold and Denise Reed's son. You're good with your hands and your heart. You fix things, you help people, you're kind. My throat tightened. Harold spoke then, his voice low and calm. You going back to get your things? Yeah, this afternoon. You want company? I shook my head. I need to do this alone. He nodded. All right. But Marcus? Yeah, Dad? Say less. Document more. I frowned. What? When you go there, don't argue, don't explain, just get what's yours and document everything. Take pictures, record if you need to, protect yourself. It was smart, practical, the kind of quiet strategy my father always used. Okay, I said. Denise handed me something. The family photo she'd told me about at the peace dinner, the one with all of us at my high school graduation, young, happy, together. Keep this, she said, so you remember what matters. I tucked it carefully into my jacket pocket. At exactly 2 p.m., I pulled up to the estate gates. This time, they opened. Mr. Colson himself was waiting inside. He looked uncomfortable. Marcus, he said quietly, I'm sorry about all this. It's your job, I said. I get it. Still, he gestured toward the house. Your things are by the front door. You have until 4. Understood. He walked with me to the house. My boxes were stacked on the marble floor of the entryway. Clothes, tools, books, everything I owned, packed like I'd never existed here. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Every box, every angle. Colson watched but didn't stop me. I opened the first box. My work clothes were there, but wrinkled, shoved in carelessly. I took a picture. Second box, my tools, but not all of them. My best wrench set was missing, the one my father had given me when I opened the shop. I looked at Colson. Some of my things are missing. He shifted uncomfortably. I can't speak to that. Who packed these boxes? I don't know. Can I look in my room just to check? He hesitated. I'll have to ask. He spoke into his radio. A moment later, Charlotte's voice crackled back. He can look, but he doesn't touch anything else. Colson led me upstairs to the guest room. My room. The door was open. The room was empty. Bed stripped, closet bare. I walked to the nightstand, opened the drawer. Empty. The family photo was gone. The one I'd kept putting back. The one Charlotte kept hiding. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She took the photo, I said quietly. Colson looked away. I pulled out my phone and took more pictures. The empty room, the bare nightstand, the drawer. Then I walked to the master bedroom. The door was closed. I need to check in here, I said. Marcus, I can't let you. My father's watch is missing. It was in my room. If it's not in the boxes, it's in there. Colson's jaw tightened. He spoke into his radio again. Charlotte's voice came back, sharp and cold. Tell him no. He's not authorized to enter my bedroom. It's my father's watch, I said loudly, making sure she could hear through the radio. It has his initials engraved on it. It's the only thing he gave me when I got married. And it's missing. Silence. Then, fine. 2 minutes. Don't touch anything. Colson opened the door. The master bedroom looked exactly like it always had. Perfect, cold, empty of any sign I'd ever existed. I opened the drawer on what used to be my side of the bed. Empty. I opened Charlotte's drawer, and there it was. My father's watch, the family photo, and a note. I picked up the note. It was in Charlotte's handwriting. This is what happens when you forget your place. My hands shook. I took a picture of everything, the watch, the photo, the note. Then I took the watch and the photo. Time's up, Colson said gently. I nodded and walked out. I loaded the boxes into my truck in silence. Everything I owned fit in the bed of a pickup. 2 years of marriage, 2 years of trying to fit in, 2 years of shrinking myself, and it all fit in 6 boxes. Charlotte never came outside, never showed her face. She just watched from the window. I could feel her eyes on me. When I loaded the last box, I looked up at that window. One more time. She was there, arms crossed, face cold. I didn't wave, didn't give her anything. I just got in my truck and drove away. In the rearview mirror, the estate got smaller and smaller, and I felt lighter with every mile. That evening, I sat at my parents' dining table, sorting through the boxes. My mother made tea. My father sat across from me, quiet and steady. You okay, son? He asked. Getting there. I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures, the note, the watch hidden in her drawer. Harold's jaw tightened. She wanted to hurt you. Yeah? What are you going to do? I thought about that, about revenge, about anger, about public confrontation, but none of that felt right. I'm going to choose myself, I said quietly. I'm going to stop protecting her image, stop pretending, stop hiding. Denise smiled. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but I know I'm not begging. I'm not fighting. I'm just done. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mrs. Hensley, the older woman from the legacy celebration, the one who'd known my father. Mrs. Hensley, Marcus, I heard about what happened at the brunch. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, please let me know. Also, I'm hosting a small charity mixer next week. Nothing fancy, just good people doing good work. Your father is always welcome. You are too. I showed the text to my parents. You should go, my mother said. With us? I asked. Harold smiled. As a family. Something settled in my chest, something that felt like peace. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The next few days were quiet. Charlotte texted me constantly at first. Love messages, angry messages, threats. Charlotte, I miss you. Please come home. Charlotte, you're making a huge mistake. Charlotte, if you humiliate me publicly, you'll regret it. I responded only once. Me, I'm not humiliating you. I'm choosing myself. After that, I stopped reading her messages. I went to work, fixed cars, talked to Tasha, had dinner with my parents. I started rebuilding. The charity mixer was on a Thursday evening. It was at a small event space downtown, not fancy, not exclusive, just warm and welcoming. I arrived with my parents. We walked in together, shoulders aligned. Mrs. Hensley greeted us at the door with genuine warmth. Harold, she said, embracing my father. Denise, Marcus, I'm so glad you came. Thank you for inviting us, my mother said. The room was full of people I didn't know, but they were kind, real. They talked about community projects and local charities. They asked questions and actually listened to the answers. No one treated me like I was lucky to be there. No one treated my parents like they were charity cases. We just existed, together, as equals. I was talking to a woman about her after school program when I felt the energy in the room shift. I turned. Charlotte stood in the doorway, Vivian beside her, Grant just behind them. They were dressed like they were attending a gala, overdressed, out of place. Charlotte's eyes found mine across the room. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me, Vivian and Grant trailing like shadows. Marcus, she said, her voice tight. Can we talk? We're in the middle of an event, I said calmly. I don't care. We need to talk. Now. Mrs. Hensley appeared at my side. Is there a problem? Charlotte forced a smile. No, just a private conversation with my husband. He seems content where he is, Mrs. Hensley said politely but firmly. Charlotte's face flushed. She looked around the room expecting support, expecting people to defer to her. But no one moved. Grant stepped forward, his voice smooth. Marcus, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. I looked at him. I'm not making anything difficult. I'm just living my life. By embarrassing your wife? Grant said. By parading around with. He stopped when Harold stepped up beside me. My father didn't say anything, just stood there, calm, present. Grant's mouth closed. Charlotte looked at me with something close to desperation. Marcus, please, can we just talk? Alone? I walked toward her, not far, just close enough to speak quietly. You didn't want to talk when you locked me out, I said softly. You didn't want to talk when you hid my father's watch and wrote that note. You didn't want to talk when you humiliated my parents at brunch. I made a mistake, she whispered. You made a choice. I can change. Maybe you can, I said, but I don't need to watch you do it. I'm done, Charlotte. Her eyes filled with tears. You're really going to throw away our marriage? I didn't throw it away. You did. The moment you treated my family like they were beneath you. I stepped back. You didn't ban my parents from your world, I said quietly. You banned yourself from mine. I turned and walked back to my parents, to the people who loved me without conditions. Charlotte stood there, frozen. Vivian grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door, whispering furiously. Grant followed. Looking back once with something like contempt, they left, and the room returned to warmth and conversation like they'd never been there at all. The weeks that followed were strange, quiet, new. I stayed with my parents while I looked for my own place. Something small, something that felt like mine. I worked at the shop, took on extra hours, started saving money. Charlotte called a few times. I didn't answer. Her lawyer sent papers, divorce papers. I signed them without hesitation. One morning, I arrived at the shop early. Tasha was already there, working on a Mercedes that had been giving us trouble all week. Got it running, she said with satisfaction. Nice. She looked at me. You doing okay? Yeah, I said, and I meant it. Good. She smiled. Because I got a business proposition for you. Yeah? I'm thinking about expanding, opening a second, location. Need a partner. I stared at her. Seriously? Dead serious. You're good, Marcus. You know this business, and I trust you. I felt something warm spread through my chest. I'd like that. Good. She handed me a wrench. Now help me with this transmission. We worked side by side in comfortable silence. It felt like home. A few months later, I was driving to my new apartment when I passed by one of Charlotte's favorite restaurants. A familiar car was parked outside. Harold's sedan. I slowed down, confused. Then I saw them, my parents, walking out with Mrs. Hensley and two other people from the charity mixer, laughing, happy. My mother saw me and waved. I pulled over and got out. Marcus, she said, hugging me, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Charity committee meeting, Harold said. Mrs. Hensley invited us to join the board. I looked at Mrs. Hensley. She smiled. Your parents have a lot to offer, Marcus. We're lucky to have them. My mother squeezed my hand. You want to join us for coffee? I can't. I have to meet Tasha about the new location. How's that going? My father asked. Good, really good. He clapped my shoulder. Proud of you, son. I felt my throat tighten. Thanks, Dad. I hugged them both and got back in my truck. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. They were still standing there talking and laughing with people who actually valued them. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without looking. But something made me check. It was a photo, a screenshot from someone's social media. Charlotte, standing outside a boutique downtown, looking thin, tired. The caption read, ran into Charlotte Van Alder today. She looked so different. anyone know what happened with her husband? I stared at the photo for a long moment. Then I deleted it and kept driving. Early one Saturday morning, a few weeks later, I pulled up to the new shop. Location. Tasha's second location. Our second location. The building was small but perfect. Good bones, good neighborhood. I parked my truck out front and sat there for a moment, just looking at it. This was mine. Ours. Built on honest work and real friendship. I got out and unlocked the door. The smell of fresh paint and possibility filled the air. My phone rang. My mother. Hey, Ma. Hey, baby. You at the new place? Yeah. How's it look? Perfect. She laughed softly. I'm proud of you, Marcus. We both are. Thanks, Ma. You happy? I looked around the empty shop, thought about everything I'd lost, everything I'd gained. Yeah, I said. I am. Good. That's all that matters. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. I stood in the middle of the empty shop, breathing in the clean, honest air. Outside, a car slowed down. I glanced out the window. A black Mercedes, tinted windows. It stopped across the street, sat there for a long moment. Then it drove away, slowly. I couldn't see who was inside, but I knew. Some mornings, she still drives past. I see the black Mercedes slow down outside the shop, see it pause, see it sit there like she's waiting for something. Maybe she's waiting for me to fail. Maybe she's waiting for me to come back. Maybe she's just trying to understand how I walked away from everything she offered and found something better. I don't know, and I don't need to, because I'm not the same man who stood at those estate gates begging to be let in. I'm not the man who hid his parents to keep peace. I'm not the ghost who disappeared into someone else's world. I'm Marcus Reed, Harold and Denise's son, a mechanic, a business partner, a man who knows his worth. And when that black Mercedes drives past, I just keep working, keep building, keep choosing myself. Some mornings she still sees my truck outside the shop, and maybe, just maybe, she remembers the helicopter she thought was a joke, the parents she called embarrassing, the man she tried to keep in his place, and maybe she realizes what she threw away. But that's not my story anymore. That's hers. Mine is just beginning.